kind of take being able to access videos, music, and information on the internet for granted now. Back in the 90s, it wasn't so easy. And even though the internet existed then, it wasn't a simple matter of browsing to YouTube or going to your favorite fandom.com page to get information on something of interest to you. To cater for this, there was a preponderance of multimedia CDs available on PCs and console. There was Sega Saturn network available in Japan from 1996, but not everyone had the internet, could afford it, or afford the modem and connection. Additionally, a lot of online services were very basic and often relied on submission of forms, emailing, or even printing and physically mailing forms sometimes. The other issue was that bandwidth was still so limited. Streaming video and audio was still a dream for the most part. What did exist almost always required a computer for playing back QuickTime or AVI clips. So, assuming the user wanted to skip or avoid a lot of the hassle involved with such an untested and burgeoning technology at the time, what options did one have for services in the mid to late 90s that bucked the conventional trends of personals or in-person networking or just consuming rich media at home? Some developers tried to fill this gap with extremely niche and specific multimedia experiments on consoles like Sega Saturn, and no country went harder at this than Japan. After all, the Saturn could natively play Cinepack video, CD audio, and had a huge install base in Japanese homes, so it made sense. Enter the three titles we're going to discuss today. We're not going to talk about just the nature of these titles though, there's an abundance of that already on the internet. We're also going to go into the background of these titles, the people who made them, and complete the picture on what these were and who created them. Message Navi Volume 2 was produced by Sims, a joint venture between Senritsu Denki and Sega. Prior to the joint venture, Senritsu Denki was most known for developing the original Outrun, and producing games like Bomber Raid and Assault City on the Sega Master System. Dreamcube apparently also had a hand in developing Message Navi. What is Dreamcube? It's really unclear because there's virtually no information about this company on the internet. Every Google leads you to the credits for Message Navi, and in one instance I found they handled the business management for the sound effects for Guilty Gear on the PlayStation. There's also a couple of other scattered minor credits like this. I like a puzzle, and this one was one I was going to figure out. Let's start at the bare minimum information we had to work with. Dreamcube Company Limited builds itself as Digital Entertainment Factory on their logo. This yielded no results other than a company in Delaware. However, it did give me an idea. If I couldn't find Dreamcube on the internet, it didn't mean the company didn't exist anymore. Maybe they just had a smaller internet presence. I went to the Japanese Stock Exchange and Tax Office websites and searched only to find nothing. Although I couldn't find the company there, I did find this. It was on some kind of Spanish electrical engineering website which featured a directory of Class C IP addresses. Another set of information presented itself to me for Dreamcube that perhaps I could use. Now the issue is, with this information buried in a text file, I was starting to get the feeling that Dreamcube had fallen into the void. But I searched the street address anyway. And it's a Starbucks. Then I found out this list was last updated in 2001, so they haven't been there for a while. I did find one more address. This one I totally missed, which seems idiotic, but I skipped through it in a menu inside of the Message Navi disk. It's direct mail address for Dreamcube for users to interact with them. It was unlikely that they'd still be there, as the previous address we looked at was newer, but out of curiosity I looked for it. The Izumi building doesn't seem to exist anymore, but this is roughly where Dreamcube was according to them at the time Message Navi 2 was published. At this point it's fairly obvious Dreamcube does not exist anymore in this mortal plane. However, there were still one or two loose ends to tie up. The company pretty much always showed up in the special thanks or sound sections of the credits of Guilty Gear games. I did find them mentioned in the credits of Guilty Gear's Japanese release under Package Design and Business Manage. So they were an advertising, package design, and business management company. Surely they had a website at some point. And here it is, circa 1999. The concept page basically just explains that Dreamcube was a company made up of ex-advertising specialists. Well, that we already kind of figured out on our own. From the business domain page, it looks like Dreamcube billed themselves as a total marketing company. And if you want final confirmation we're looking at the correct company, Dreamcube specialized entirely in the games industry. Hot damn, we're on a streak here. Let's see what else we can find. From the total market support page, they go on to talk about how extremely crowded Japan's software scene was at the time. It was making it difficult for companies to stand out apparently, so they'd help you. Makes sense? They go on to say in the PR support business section that they will manage the user list and manage the fan club on behalf of the developer. This is basically what drove MessageNavi interaction with the user base. Finally, I found one more interesting page. The Entrusted Titles page, when translated, clear as crystal, shows in February 1998, MessageNavi 2 launched. Another interesting little nugget emerged showing the map of exactly where Dreamcube was located at the time. However, the area has changed a lot and no longer looks like this. In the case of MessageNavi, this kind of relationship between Sims and Dreamcube would have worked well. This was a product that lived and died entirely on user interaction. If Dreamcube had marketing or administration expertise in the service of a multimedia company, then it was a sensible matchup because they'd be able to manage the user interaction, package and produce the physical product, and also if they had graphics design expertise, well, there's another part of the equation fulfilled. Then Sims could focus on the design of the product rather than the logistical side of things. And there it is. We confirmed who Dreamcube actually were. An interesting piece of buried history from gaming past, who made experiments like MessageNavi a possibility. Today, if we want to network with people with similar interests as us, we might hit up Reddit to find a Discord server, or find a forum, or use something like Facebook to locate a fan page. However, what if it's 1998, and we don't have the internet? Well, you'd mostly be relying on magazines, typically, to probably find ads for meetups, which you could use to network. However, if that wasn't your style, and you were an anime or video game fan in Japan, then MessageNavi might have been right up your alley. The closest thing MessageNavi resembles is a digital magazine. It features a searchable list of personals which could have been used not only to find people with similar interests to you, but also give you a rough idea of where they hang out so you can bump into them. In addition to this, there's coverage of a cosplay contest with some amazing cosplay on display, information about horoscopes, ideas of fun outings, and also contests and even a unique comic. There's also a section on how to get in touch with Dreamcube if you'd like to be featured in MessageNavi Volume 3. On a whole, the presentation is very good, and I find the entire concept behind this intriguing. The idea of a digital magazine for people who may not have had access to the internet, or they want to target specifically users of MessageNavi and want to network, I think would have had a lot of value back then. You'll get more out of MessageNavi Volume 2 if you understand Japanese, but you can still easily navigate the various menus and enjoy the collection of pictures contained on the disc that, if anything, now acts as a fascinating time capsule that allowed contemporary users the ability to easily network with each other in a targeted way. It was kind of like falling down a rabbit hole determining the exact nature of the company who produced Heim Waltz. There are plenty of mentions of the disc itself on the internet, but no one ever provides any context on the people who made it. The company behind Heim Waltz is actually Sekisui Chemical Proprietary Limited. Heim was a style of housing they developed. Heim Waltz is obviously a playful way of saying you can walk around a Heim model house in this CD. It turns out the housing arm of the company is quite historically important. After the post-war economic boom of the 1960s, they created the Heim M1, which was a low-cost, customizable prefab housing concept. The idea being you can strike a balance between prefabrication and individuality when building your dwelling, while other prefab manufacturers were all making identical units. There is a website with information available and a video archive which hasn't been updated since 2005, but features interviews with the designers and also original residents of the M1 style properties. There's also a photo gallery as well. The houses featured in Heim Waltz are basically the modern versions of this style of house on display for prospective buyers. Still making houses today, Sekisui is a very large company comprising several divisions like plastic manufacturing, chemical, and housing development. These discs were not for resale and were likely to have been passed out to prospective buyers so they could get a virtual tour of the home from their own living room. What is the Heim Waltz software all about, however? Well, after an introduction, you're given the choice of exploring one of two display homes or viewing a plan. The walkthrough option at the top of the menu takes you to the houses to walk around in an FMV adventure-style fashion, and the plan option takes you to an overhead floor plan so you can see the size of the rooms and query the build. The more interesting part of the CD is the walkthrough option, which gives you the choice of two models to explore, querying the options which are explained to you, and if you don't want to just walk around and have a look, you can also use a pointer to select individual items in a room, which yield you information about them specifically. Overall, it's a really interesting disc, and comprises some decent presentation, and is analogous to an online home builder's website or real estate site, where information like this is readily accessible through graphs, images, and videos. But back in the mid to late 90s, nothing like this existed beyond simple text listings, photos, and floor plans online. The concept of using video to demonstrate the interior of a house like this was quite ingenious, and makes this worth looking at. Iron Chef Kitchen Stadium Tour is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a fan disc where Iron Chef buffs can wander around Kitchen Stadium, learning about their favorite Iron Chef's meals they've created, ingredients they use, do quizzes, read about kitchen techniques, and so on. It's pretty exhaustive and very well presented. This is almost like a fandom website featuring rich multimedia that we have now, but simply presented on a Sega Saturn disc. It's really quite fun to wander around and see what there is to watch and read. I found out a lot of people I know watched the Japanese Iron Chef like I did when I was younger and loved the flashy showiness of it and Chairman Kaga's pageantry, and this disc brought back a lot of memories. Not only is it a fun thing to waste time with, but for 1996 it was quite forward-thinking in how it presented fan material to an audience, using rich multimedia that wasn't just a bunch of slideshows. And with that, thank you for watching. I do appreciate you taking the time to go on this little journey with me and look at 3 very interesting discs on the Sega Saturn that were exclusive to Japan, where they were trying to pioneer a new way of presenting rich multimedia in the home in the absence of something like the internet.